Well, good evening, Cedar Falls. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting for Monday, December 5th, 2022. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Canfield.
Here.
Sires.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
All members present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam. If you're able and willing, if you'd please stand with me to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, for first approval of the minutes, item 1, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and seconded for the regular meeting of November 21st. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. So that takes us over to Madam Clerk. Do we have agenda revisions?
Mr. Mayor, I have no agenda revisions.
Thank you. And we have no special presentations tonight, so that'll move us forward into the public forum, where speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics relevant to city business. I would just note, too, as usual, if there's something that's going to be on the agenda item tonight, or on the agenda later, I would invite you to speak during that time, just so that it's all captured together on camera and as a cohesive item, but that doesn't prohibit you from also speaking now as well. So does anyone wish to speak in public forum at this time? Yes, Mr. Sharp, name and address for the record, please, sir.
Rick Sharp, 1623 Burt Street, Cedar Falls. So I'm just going to talk about what happened from what I read about goal setting recently. From what I understand, how goal setting works is that you try to get consensus, and then anything that comes out of it is pretty much going to have a good chance of passing council approval. So what I'm here tonight is to challenge the supporters of the expansion of a TIF district on University Avenue for the mall, as well as funding for the swimming pool. We're a little bit, if we make that TIF district on University Avenue, there are no, what's the parameters for it? Does it go clear up to Cedar Heights? Midway? Does it branch off University Avenue like all the other TIFs that we're kind of tying into that Highway 58 corridor? I think that's a poor use of the taxpayers' money. We're supporting a company that's going to support, we don't even know what their plans are for the mall. Malls are a failed business model, and we shouldn't be bailing them out. You know, let these private investors do that. We've had enough success on the University Avenue corridor without TIFing it. We managed to build roundabouts and use the taxpayers' money to, a huge investment on that without TIF. We've had a number of successful businesses located along the TIF corridor. Scratch, you have the furniture place coming in, Starbucks, restaurants coming in there. So the University Avenue corridor is not a slum or blight area that needs to be TIFed. Again, we're just talking about this development group that's trying to seek incentives that they need to defend themselves, why they want the, what are their plans? Like I said, the mall is a failed business model, has been for decades. No sense throwing out money for that there. And I saw that in the previous presentation for them. They said they were presenting a final offer, I guess, in Q1 of 2023, I guess, to the current owners, but it only gets done with city incentives. Again, that's like, what, a few months away? So the importance of knowing what their financial incentives are and its cost to us as taxpayers is important before we even bring this forward for next year. The second one I have is with the pool. The citizens spoke loud about the recent high school with the referendum. It was too expensive. They voted it down. The school district modified it, reduced it, and the citizens approved it finally. And then all of a sudden the school district is asking the city for money for a swimming pool. So we gave them $5 million for that. And now the district or their supporters are coming back in and saying, hey, look, here's this cool presentation. We need $2.9 million from you. The city during goal setting said, sure, we can bring that up for discussion. And then the group said, but we also will need another $1.7 million that we'll try to get on our own. So my question is going to be, even if, I wouldn't recommend giving the $2.9 million to them because you're basically betraying the citizens' trust when they voted to have the smaller referendum support the high school. You went ahead and already gave them $5 million. Let's leave it at that. With that presentation, they said that the whole community could benefit from it. So my question to those that are in favor of the pool for the district or their supporters is to reach out to the county, because supposedly the county's going to benefit from it. Reach out to the college, because the college is supposed to benefit from it as well, I guess. But reach out to all these other agencies other than coming back to the city for more money. And like they showed, Waterloo pools are also in sad shape. And who's to say that in a couple years Waterloo will build a new pool, and that will take away whatever business that this group has said that that's going to come into the city of Cedar Falls. So we really got to watch how we're spending our taxes here. I think we've made a lot of promises, or not promises, but we're bringing a lot of stuff forward that, you know, the citizens already spoke of before, either through referendum votes and everything else with the TIFs. And then one final thing that I saw on there too was that we had asked for a study, or some of the council members asked for the public safety officer study, see if the program's worth money, you know, how much it's saving. And then the irony was that, oh, we have no money for it. We can't find money for it, but I just given you guys two examples that you have plenty of money for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Does anyone else wish to speak in public forum tonight? Okay, seeing none, then we'll consider the public forum closed and take us over to staff updates. So, Mr. Gaines, do you have any reports for us tonight?
No staff updates, Mayor.
Okay. Moving to old business, the item number 2 is a reconsidering action taken relative to a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement for a private development and approving and authorizing execution of a quitclaim deed conveying certain city-owned property, city-owned real estate to CF Storage LLC. In this case, the motion, because it's a reconsideration item, the motion would have to be motion and seconded either by an absent member or someone who was on the prevailing side. So if someone voted no on it in our last council meeting, they wouldn't be eligible to then vote in favor of, to second the reconsideration.
Point of order.
Yes.
It failed, so no would be the prevailing side, right? So if they voted no, they
Correct.
would be permitted, but
Thank
if they
you.
voted yes, they wouldn't be.
Thank you very, yes, that's right.
Just make sure. Well, I was absent. I'd like to hear it, so I'll motion.
Okay, so it's brought forward as a motion on 1. Is there a second on the prevailing side? Okay, I'm not hearing a second on the prevailing side, so that item is not eligible for reconsideration. So that takes us over to item 3, which is passing ordinance 3020, amending chapter 16, offenses and miscellaneous provisions of the Code of Ordinances relative to the use of consumer fireworks within city limits upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Any questions from the public? Seeing none. So motion and seconded, and requires a roll call vote. We're using our new laptops tonight, so bear with us for a few moments.
Alrighty, did it.
Hit submit.
Did you hit submit?
It said it was accepted.
Would you mind doing it again?
Sure. Submit. Worked that time. Okay.
6 voting aye, 1 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us to, so that does pass. And this is its third and final consideration, which means that this is the new ordinance moving forward for the consumer fireworks in Cedar Falls. Item 4 is passing ordinance 3021, amending section 1823.5, powers and duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing 2/3 majority vote required by City Council to approve amendments to the city's comprehensive plan that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any council discussion? Any comments from the public on this? You seeing none? Then motion and seconded, and requires a roll call vote.
Do it again.
Do it twice. All right.
4 voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so that does pass. I will intend to veto that item on a memo to council later this week. Item 5 is passing ordinance 3022, amending Chapter 26 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to removing the two-thirds majority vote required by City Council to approve zoning amendments that are disapproved by the Planning and Zoning Commission upon its third and final consideration. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Or any questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, then motion and seconded and requires a roll call vote.
One more.
Sorry,
Didn't record. Yeah, one more over there.
4 voting aye, 3 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And as with item 4, I intend to issue a veto later this week on this item. So that takes us over to the consent calendar, where these items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. I'm going to pull item 8, and does any council member request to pull an item from 6 through 11? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent
So
calendar minus 8.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Did we
Yes.
provide any for the public or no?
What's that?
There's no.
Oh, yes, I apologize. Thank you for the point of order. Does anyone from the public wish to pull an item 6 through 11? Thanks very much for catching me on that. Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion for items 6 through 11,
-8.
minus 8. And
So moved.
Second.
moved and seconded. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those do pass. And I'll take us to 8, which is receiving and filing a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Noah Hackbart as student liaison, term ending 4/30/2023. We're very happy to have Mr. Hackbart with us tonight, and you are welcome to take your seat with us after you give a quick introduction of yourself. Welcome to council.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Council. Thank you for this. I'm Noah Hackbart. I'm the Director of Governmental Relations for the Northern Iowa Student Government and serving as the interim liaison to you all. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to help represent the students of the University of Northern Iowa. The student government does a lot of work, and I think one area we can always improve on is city relations. It's a big area of our student government that we need to be talking more about. The University of Northern Iowa is such a big partner in this community and provides a lot for this community, and from all the students that I hear, it is a great community. So a lot of the work that I do is down at the Capitol, but now a lot of the work that I will also be doing is here with you in council and asking questions and with university-related items. And I hope you'll all ask me questions. I hope you'll all utilize me as a resource, that sort of middle guy between us and the student government at UNI. And if you have any questions or concerns, like I said, I hope you reach out. I have business cards as well. And for some background, I'm from Ankeny, Iowa. I'm a third-year political communications student, and I come from a UNI family. My dad's a 91 grad, my sister a 2017 grad, and my brother will graduate this year with an education major. So my parents actually met on the UNI campus, so it's a very, Cedar Valley is a special place to us. And I'll be graduating, like I said, next year with a political communications degree. So. Always want to work on bridging that divide between city and university in any way that we can, and I think bringing a student's voice is really important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hackbart. Does the council have any questions for Mr. Hackbart?
Oh, just welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good to be here.
I don't have any questions, but I am excited. Like, this was on hold for a while, obviously, from the pandemic, and last year we had a little taste of it, but I think it's incredibly important to have a voice from University of Northern Iowa here for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll be attending NISG meetings as well going forward for the Senate.
We meet, if I can add, on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in the university room of Mocker Union. We'd love to have, if you want to even give a guest report, just let me know and I can get that on our Senate agenda. We'd love to have you join us. So, see what we do.
Thank you. Does the public have any comments or questions? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Name and address for the record, please.
So I am a reporter from the Northern Iowa, and my name is Nick Supanitas, and I'm just wondering, Kelly, you mentioned that it was delayed. I'm kind of curious if you can give me more insight of like the liaison, if that makes sense.
I think the mayor, it was just because of the pandemic. We didn't have anybody for a while.
Yeah, so in this year, the concern was trying to just recruit someone to serve, and so with Mr. Hackbart as the Director of Government Relations with NISG, he's basically stepping into that role. We may have another person who's assigned to that down the road, but this was a very good first step to get that connection again.
Cool.
Yeah, if I can add, it is a Senate confirmed position, so we do have somebody apply, our president nominates, and our Senate approves. So it'll go through that process as well, just for some background as to why not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve
So moved.
or to receive and file the communication.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. That passes, and please join us. I think it's a round of applause. Let's do that. So that takes us out of the consent calendar and over into the resolution calendar, where these items will be acted upon by roll call vote without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Does any council member request to pull an item from 13 through 27?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Schultz.
17.
17, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Cyrus.
Ganfield.
Canfield.
Oh, Councilmember
That's
Campbell, sorry.
13, 14, 17's already been pulled.
13, 14, okay. Any others from council? Does anyone from the public wish to pull an item off the agenda for separate discussion? Yes, Mr. Sharp? Okay, so those are off already, okay. And any others? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve those items on the resolution calendar minus 13, 14, and 17. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and seconded, requires a roll call vote. Let's get a magic marker.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that takes us back to item 13, which is a resolution approving and adopting amendments to the Personnel Policy 809, disciplinary procedures for the City of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded, open for discussion. So Councilmember Ganfield, you had questions or comments on this one?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. On, looks like section 903C, I'm just curious why we're removing from the grievance panel the mayor and city administrator.
So this for 13? So disciplinary procedures?
I apologize, went to the wrong one. It's the same concern, though. I'm looking for the section. I apologize, I did not make the correct highlights in my notes.
That's okay, we'll take time.
But there is a removal of the mayor and city administrator. It looks like on 809, previous section 5. So I'm just concerned with removing the mayor and city administrator. I appreciate the work with the human resources manager added in here, but it is going to be recommending any disciplinary action to the city administrator. I'd like to retain the transparency of having the mayor involved in that process.
So for staff to comment on that, who would be the best person for that? Would it be, Bailey Schindel is here as our HR manager, and she'll speak to the item.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Bailey Schindel, HR manager. So just to address your questions here for the disciplinary 809 procedures. So the mayor is being removed at recommendation of himself and staff. Typically, elected officials aren't involved in disciplinary procedures. That is kind of common in other cities as well. The city administrator is not being removed. If you refer to number 5, new number 5, he will review and approve all recommendations for discipline prior to them being administered. So just removing the mayor at recommendation of himself and staff, just to reflect kind of current practices and recommendation.
Yeah, I'll note too, it doesn't take the mayor out of the process, because under the city code, I still am the city's ombudsman and have the responsibility to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse. So if something does come up that's outside of the disciplinary channels, and I see that there's been obvious abuse or even an allegation of it, I still have that authority as the CEO to investigate, and I would do that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, not a question so much. I just want to make sure that we still have that oversight from the elected body. I'm concerned that the recourse, if any, is needed, is hindered by the removal of your position. So I have a concern with it.
In standard procedure, just in any normal disciplinary process, that kind of oversight would be taking it to the EEOC. That would be a next step, an oversight government body as well, or the Iowa Civil Rights Commission. So there are other options as well.
Just on principle, I think it's best if, as a mayor, since the city administrator has been charged by council to conduct the administration of personnel matters in the city, I would be very comfortable keeping myself one level away from that, so that for the through the listed city processes, those flow through to the administrator, and then the electeds are there as the oversight, both council through the standing committees and the mayor directly, to make sure that the government is running the way that we expect it to. So I have no concerns that it takes away any real authority that I have. Okay, so any other questions from council on this one? Any comments from the public or questions? Yes, Mr. Sharp? Okay, yes, please. Thank you, Bailey. Ms. Hindle?
Okay, Rick Sharp, 1623 Birch Street. So as a former city employee, I guess part of what was answered is what was prompting the change from it. To me, the council, the mayor, throughout the grievance and disciplinary process, they were considered, in my mind, like a neutral body, hopefully. When you transfer all that power and decision-making to the department heads and the city manager, city administrator, the people that actually make the policies, they're the judge and the jury there, and I don't see any neutrality in that. So when you have an employee group that's not covered by collective bargaining, that most contracts for the union people will require an arbitrator or a fact finder for neutrality. And when you keep it within the department heads and the city managers to determine, you know, I already made the policy, so I'm not going to have much open-mindedness towards that. And that's
and
what
here we are talking about disciplinary.
Disciplinary, yep.
Grievances is a separate
It's a
discussion.
separate one. I'll just come up on that then, I guess. But the whole process, though, again, is, you know, we look forward to having the neutrality, a part of having the council and mayor involved in that level. So that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Any other questions or comments from the public? And bring it back to the council for a final discussion here.
I have a question. It mentioned in there, or third party, I believe. How would one go about, what's the decision-making process into whether it's a group or a third party, or how would that work?
Disciplinary?
Yeah, under disciplinary. So, Mr. Gaines, would you want to comment on that because it probably would be your decision, right, or the HR managers?
Sure, I think there's probably a number of different circumstances where you would go to a third party. One is it could be a higher level manager position that you would say, hey, this needs to be investigated by somebody else. If it's maybe more criminal, you could go outside of our agency to look at what those would be. So depending on the circumstances, it could be a whole myriad of reasons why we go external.
And I listed in the proposed change, I'd ask to have it clarified that any investigation or investigatory hearing, I think we call it, would have to be done by the supervisor of that person, or by the HR manager, or by a third party. And that's to make sure that it's not a peer that is investigating you. Because I think that, especially if that peer works for the same supervisor, it lends itself to being perceived as either a conflict of interest or a bias, that there's going to be a preordained outcome because, well, we're under the same supervisor. I know what that supervisor wants. And I hope that doesn't happen, but I want to avoid the potential for that to happen by having the option of either Ms. Schindel as the HR manager or a third party available to handle that.
Thanks.
Other questions? All Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded to approve and adopt amendments to Personnel Policy 809, disciplinary procedures for the city of Cedar Falls, and requires a roll call vote.
Five voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that takes us over to the grievance procedure. Item 14, it says, resolution approving and adopting amendments to Personnel Policy 903, grievance procedure for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Open for council discussion. Councilmember Ganfield, you brought this one up as
Yep.
well.
Mr. Mayor, a similar concern here. The grievance panel shall consist of the mayor, the city administrator. That was the previous. It's now saying just all department directors or the department director's designated alternate. Again, I think to Mr. Sharp's point, there is some neutrality in our body, and we're hearing from the citizenry that deals with this, and we have no recourse if we don't know what's going on. So to be excluded from the grievance process, I think, is unwise. On, I believe it's section 903, section D, they may appeal the decision to now the city administrator. The current is they may appeal the decision to the administration committee of the city council. I would like to move that we replace that administration committee of the city council in this change.
So I would ask for Mr. Rogers, we had this discussion in the past about the administration committee and how this is in comparison with other cities and standard practice. So could you enlighten us a little bit on where we stand of having the admin committee review these?
So to the, excuse me, sorry, to the extent that a grievance would entertain some sort of a look at discipline, it's unheard of among cities that I'm aware of that elected officials get involved in those matters. It's been quite some time when I polled fellow city attorneys. I guess I'll just say they were surprised at the process. But doesn't mean that Cedar Falls can't go its own way on this. But if we're going to compare to other cities, they don't involve elected officials in matters like these.
Question.
Councilor Harding.
I don't think that the council elected officials should be judging on grievances. I think it's a conflict of interest and it can politicize it. So but I do want to make sure that is there still some way that they could appeal to an outside entity other than having it just internally done? So let's say they believe they've been, the grievances failed and they believe it's unjust. Is there an appeals process in place? That's my question. Or where can they go to? Or is it just done when it reaches the city administrator?
Directed to me, I'll take care of that one.
Yeah.
So after the last step within the city, then if it depends upon the type of claim raised, but the person would have to go outside the city for review. That could be the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, or district court, labor matters, PERB. There are avenues, but they would be outside the city.
So it would be it would be outside. That's what I'm making sure. It can be outside the city.
It would have to be outside the
Yeah.
city. So that would be the neutrality of it.
Okay.
Finally, in the
Because I've long had the thought that us arbitrating on internal city things to me it's a conflict of interest because it can easily become political. So I definitely don't like the council having to vote on those grievances. I think it should be outside of the city and be a completely neutral entity. So.
Other thoughts? Councilor DeBreer?
I just wonder if there's a scriber's error. There's 2 number 4s and no number 5. So was that second 4 supposed to be or need to be corrected to a 5? Page 161.
Mm-hmm.
I see Kevin saying yes. Can we just correct that? Okay. You're welcome.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would.
Yes, Councilor Ganfield.
I would just reiterate. I mean, we've just moved to change the discipline policy to be totally in-house without any transparency there, and now we're contemplating moving the grievance policy, the appeal, where somebody can say, "Hey, I believe I was treated unfairly." and that would go to that same exact body if we make this change. In other city business, we're trying to make things simple for our residents, and while there is an external resource that they could appeal to, that's not a simple process. So to grant the disciplinary action to go internally and retain the grievance hearing with this council, that's what I'm at. It's not a vote, by the way, so it's not political. It's simply having someone you can reach out to plead your case if you believe you were aggrieved. So I don't think it should be politicizable if they have somebody to appeal to. And it's not simple to have to go elsewhere when you should be able to come here to your elected official representatives.
So I would question that for the, it just being informal of going, it actually is a formal process that person would go through.
I don't believe, I didn't intend to say informal. I said it's not a formal vote. The grievance process does exist here. It's just the body that it's being heard by. And in this instance, the body that would be hearing that grievance is the same body who was handling discipline or any of that. So,
but as I understand from staff, that would be a vote, like that they make a determination.
There's a decision and a vote under the current system without this change. After the administration committee meets and deliberates, they vote.
And if I may, Mayor,
Certainly.
while the intention is good, we are political figures, and it is politicized. I've been a part of them. It's 100% politicized. So I want to make sure that our employees have an outside source they can go to, someone neutral. They do, and that makes me feel comfortable. I don't want to see it get politicized anymore. So I don't think it's a lack of transparency at all. I think of it as actually a step forward, it's a step forward.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot to mention for civil service employees, then for discipline, appeals of discipline, there's the Civil Service Commission, which is a 3-person commission that's appointed. So that's yet another avenue for not all employees, but civil service employees could use that avenue as well.
Mr. Mayor, just one more
Yes.
point of clarity for Mr. Rogers then. The union agreement that does appeal to the admin committee is no longer in effect for any of our staff. Is that correct?
The collective bargaining agreement would control grievance procedure. They could still pursue grievances under the collective bargaining agreement.
Right, but that doesn't go to the admin committee with the Teamsters union today?
I can't quote to the contract as we sit here. I'm not sure where they go.
Yeah. If memory serves, the Teamsters does not name the admin committee, but the IAFF did. And so since we no longer have that union agreement, this would then remove the admin committee from any necessary function in a grievance.
If those are the facts, you're correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Cyrus.
I just want to weigh in here on this. Anytime you take away any power from the mayor, you're taking away from the citizens' power. And we're the representatives of the citizen, and we should always be in everything that we possibly can be, because that's who we represent. So I'm against shifting it away from the mayor. I think that elected officials should have the final say on most everything. That's all.
Thank you. And just to reiterate from last time as well, as I mentioned in the disciplinary procedures, that I still have that authority as the city ombudsman to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse. So I would exercise that if it were brought up. You know, regardless of written, final, and legal binding decision. For Mr. Rogers, as a city policy, even though this would say that I think it's on page 162 of the packet, it says, as that step 4, that final step, it says, within 5 working days of the receipt of the grievance panel's response, the employee may appeal the decision to the city administrator. City administrator shall hold a hearing within 15 business days. In other words, and the city administrator will take the necessary steps to review and investigate the grievance and will issue a written, final, and binding decision. So that's city policy. Under city code, the mayor is designated as the ombudsman with the responsibility to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse. So would that override this consideration?
Anything within the ombudsman's jurisdiction can step in at any time. Absolutely.
So I still have all those authorities, and I would never grant cede those away.
And
Mayor? Yes, Councilor Cruz.
So if we, to Councilman Sires' point, if we have council involved like he is wishing, the grieved person can still go to the entities that Kevin mentioned, Mr. Rogers mentioned.
PERB and
still keep going steps. doesn't cut off anything. And then the state ombudsman would be in that list as well, depending on the topic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd note, though, with state ombudsman, from working with them, they have tended to shift things back to the city, and that's why I asked to be designated as the ombudsman, because there are things that they just don't have the capacity to act on. They just don't have the bandwidth. So it's fairly large cases and prominent cases or high dollar items are what they're working on.
Mr. Mayor, I would add to that. I agree with that, but I've had contact work with the state ombudsman 3 or 4 occasions since I've been here. So it's not unheard of.
So you mentioned a couple times, Mr. Mayor, that you wouldn't let that happen or you would intervene. How do we assure that that's the case with the next mayor or the mayor after that or the mayor after that?
The job that's listed, the duties that are required for the mayor are council directives. It's not mayor's. It's like the council or the mayor shall do these duties. So under anything the mayor is responsible for, the council is the policing body for that. And you really are the only policing body for that.
So when you say you will, you're doing it because it's listed in your
I'm doing it
roles
because
and
it's my job.
responsibilities. Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Certainly.
That it's not just mayor doing this.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. Other questions or comments on item 14?
I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Whitaker.
Was this step 4 that we've been talking about, was that recommended by our attorney, by Kevin?
I didn't bring this forward, this recommendation, but to be honest with you, I don't know who did. I know it's been under discussion for a few years now, making this change.
So I guess the question then, like the proper question would be, did you have any legal concerns then?
Okay, if that's a question, I don't have any legal concerns. If this change were made, it's entirely legal to do so, if that's your question.
Yeah, and if step number 4 simply said that they could appeal the decision to the city administrator or the city council, would you have any opinion on that if you added the word or city council?
So from a legal standpoint, not policy, anything else, it would be legal for council to do that. However, we'd have to set forth parameters on how that decision's made, which way, what type of case or what circumstances would drive which reviewer. We'd need to clarify that a bit, I think.
Other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, do we have public comment on this yet?
Yes, well, I haven't
Okay.
had it,
Okay.
I don't think we've entertained it yet. Okay, so,
And Mr. Mayor, last question on mine side is section F. We're removing the closed session for the grievance hearing, so that, how does the grievance panel meet on that? There'd be no need for the public side to go to a closed meeting to discuss these things because it moves the city elected out of it. Is that?
yeah, Mr. Rogers can answer that.
So when current status before this change, if it's adopted, if the administration committee would consider the grievance, that would be council in a meeting, which would be an open meeting unless, because it's a personnel file, a personnel matter, the person affected would request a closed session. That's why that provision was in there. When it's internal staff at the final step, then there wouldn't be a public meeting. So that's why it is not necessary if this change is made.
Yeah, thank you. Great discussion. Anything else for council? I'll turn it to the public. Not. So is any public wish to speak? Mr. Sharp, name and address for the record again, please, sir. Welcome again.
Rick Sharp, 1623 Burt Street. Again, I cannot stress how important it is to have the council and mayor as a neutral body and involved on this. We shouldn't have to be worried about what other cities do. We have a lot of things in Cedar Falls that we only do and no other communities do. How we either run the departments or we having a full-time mayor and a full-time city manager, which most cities in Iowa don't have. So to look at what other cities are doing, yeah, we can, but we need to worry about what's good for Cedar Falls as well. Yeah, I'm just reading through this stuff. I think council member there, Canfield, said we need that transparency. And like when we have closed session, how will the public have a right to know if an employee is discharged for nefarious reasons? And everything's behind closed doors, you know? It's just like they just disappear and nobody knows what's going on. at least with public, or not, it's not a public meeting, but a closed door session, but at least it came forth and is somewhat newsworthy. I don't know, like I said, I just think you guys need to maintain your hands in this. We're not, otherwise we're just stripping more duties away from the mayor, and then I wouldn't see the need to even have a full-time mayor in town. I mean, if we're giving all the power away like they did earlier years to the city manager, you guys know that.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
Mr. Mayor? Oh, sorry. We're not back to
Yeah, does anyone else from public wish to speak on the item? Okay, seeing none, then Councilor Harding.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but the city code states the employee could go to the mayor if there was, and request an ombudsman meeting and talk about the issue, correct or no?
Correct.
So, I guess I'm confused at where we're stripping away the mayor. It seems like the mayor still has the highest authority. We're only actually taking council out of being the judge and jury of it. So I think while I respect everybody sees it a little different, I think the process we have in place right now with council making that final vote in a possibly open meeting is much more flawed than having an ombudsman look at it, or PERB, or the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, or any number of other entities that are much more qualified and much less politicized. So I guess it's, with the mayor still being in there, I feel comfortable with it. If we had the mayor completely out, I don't. But
Yeah,
the mayor still has that authority, and any employee can go to the mayor, so.
Okay, any other comments? Councilmember Cruz?
I believe Councilman Ganfield made a motion earlier, or you were saying you were entertaining a motion, but you're not doing so now?
I would move to replace the administrator with replacing the admin committee as the grievance panel, excuse me. So it's not a well-stated motion, but I would move to eliminate the change from admin committee of the city council to city administrator and put it back to the administration committee.
You're only talking about step D?
There are multiple places in the document where that happens, so it wouldn't be every single one. At minimum D, and then replace F, but those would be two separate motions.
So I would request, since we're seeking to remove ourselves, or basically eliminate that admin committee as a separate item, would you be willing to entertain that as changing that to the FBO committee?
I don't see why not.
Okay, so basically a friendly amendment, if that's okay.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Probably not.
Well, it hasn't even been seconded, so.
Okay, so the motion then on the floor is to amend step 4, which is on page 162, and in other spots as it appears, to change or to restore the item where it says may appeal the decision to, in this case, the Finance and Business Operations Committee of the City Council. I think that covers it, right? Okay, so that's been motioned as an amendment. Is
I'll
there a
second to
amend?
continue the conversation.
Okay, second to amend, or to continue conversation on this amendment. So, floor is open on the amendment itself.
Mr. Mayor, I think to advocate for it, to use Simon's nomenclature, if they have the judge and jury in one body, that's a little different here. Put yourself in the position of a city employee who is being disciplined for something that they don't deem fair treatment. The discipliner is the city administrator in this instance. This change, as earlier proposed, would make them the body that they would go to ask for a second opinion and to plead their case with. I don't know any staff that are going to continue to go through that process. So it's not simple. You have a grievance that you believe to be just. You want to have your case heard by a neutral party, as Mr. Sharp has said. You're not going to go back to the person who's in charge of disciplining you to ask them if you were fairly disciplined. We need this external body instead of just that same chain of command. Yes, there are other avenues, the ombudsman included, but it's not the simple process. I think we can, as a council, be neutral, especially since it's not one person making their decision by edict, but it is coming to an agreement on how the aggrieved party pleads their case. I don't think it's overly politicized. It could be, I suppose, but that's why I think we need to have it continue to be the city council.
Okay. And for the sake of the discussion, it looks like as I'm looking at step 3 right above, if we're talking about in this process removing the administrator from this, then it seems that it would make sense to restore the city administrator to the grievance panel. But I would still say I don't believe that it'd be appropriate for the mayor to be part of that grievance panel so that I can keep my independence as the ombudsman, if that makes sense. So would council be amenable to including that as part of this amendment to say that the administrator would be added to the process? It just seems to me make sense. It's
Well, is
coupled
that
together.
against what Dustin was just talking about?
No.
No, because this is the step 3. This is the previous, the step before it gets to the level of what he's proposing.
The grievance panel shall consist of, and you're saying the city administrator.
Right. Otherwise, it's just, it jumps from director to council.
I guess this is the appeal body on step 4. I mean, it's the first step of the appeal body, so it is kind of counter to what I just said, but step 3, having the grievance panel and their decision then be open to appeal, that's what I want to have maintained
To
as the
FPO.
council. Step 3 doesn't have to change from what this is proposed,
Okay.
even though that does make them appeal their initial case to the person who was possibly in charge of disciplining them.
Okay. So looking then only at changing from city administrator to FBO, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Harding?
I can see the allure wanting to have the council see it because we seem like a transparent, neutral body, but we're not. And you open up so many political avenues. You open up political recourse to the people if you vote against them. You open up, it just opens up all these avenues that to me are, I don't want to go down that road having been a part of these. I do think the mayor as an ombudsman is the perfect, it's just the way that I guess I see it. So while I see the allure in having the council there, I've watched it be politicized, and I've been a part of that, and I don't feel like that's fair to the city or to the employees or to the council members that are trying to make the best decisions for the city and the future and the way that they're acting. So I can see both sides, but I'm still with keeping it outside of council and keeping it with at the ombudsman.
And I just wanted, as we're looking at this, keep in mind it's not necessarily a discipline process, but it's, or disciplinary matter, but it's a staff member who is believing that a city policy is wrong or is enforced wrong. And so that still allows if it goes as it is, if it does, we don't go with city administrator, that still allows through the ombudsman, the mayor to come to council and say, I think this policy is crazy. Why is staff doing that? And just want to make sure council is aware, under city code, you have the final authority on all policies of city government, and you can override a city action. And we'll be talking about that later on in the weeks ahead. But just to clarify that the council always has that right. And I hope you wouldn't use it very often, but you can throw down and say, yep, this thing, the way that staff says it, we want to do it a different way. And then they have to do it.
Mr. Mayor, then you're saying we'd have to make a referral to get it on the agenda and stretch out the process, or what do you,
For a change to a policy?
to bring it to the council to review?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You don't have to approve it. You could just have a resolution that says we want, well, I don't want to get into off the track, but it is possible. So,
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
I don't have anything new to say. I agree with everything that Councilman Harding is saying. I don't like the idea of micromanaging our city staff. I think, be it, I'm sorry, my mind's wandering. I agree that we, and ultimately the mayor is still involved and the council is still involved. So when we talk about, we throw around this word transparency all the time and we create this aura of paranoia. I guess I have trust that the people that we've hired, the professionals that we've hired, will carry out the process as is given to them, and if needed, obviously, the mayor is there if needed, and ultimately the council's there as needed. But to micromanage the folks, and you know, I think about, like, there are times when it's somebody that has a valid complaint, but there's lots of times where it's somebody that, like, maybe they needed to go, you know? So ultimately, I trust the process, and I don't want to micromanage our staff. So I like this change.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor DeVore.
Step number 4, as recommended, basically keeps it the way it is now. It just changes it from the ad committee to the finance and business committee. But I'm more concerned about the closed session portion of this, if we're still discussing that part of it. In the past, the closed session was always determined by the employee, where this reads that it's by 2/3 of the members of the members present. So wasn't that supposed to be the employee's choice as to whether they wanted a closed session or open session?
So if the council is leaning towards putting the elected official back into the grievance process, and they're gonna meet to consider a grievance, then that's a meeting of council. And if there are confidential personnel matters that would come up, and they invariably would, the last part of the way it was worded before the change says, and the individual requests a closed session. The 2/3 there was with a legal requirement to go into closed session.
Okay.
It's just a procedural matter, but it's still up to the individual employee to request
Okay,
it.
that's what I wanted to make sure was it should be up to the employee.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for this amendment? Okay, yes, Councilor, Mr. Sharp, name and address for the record.
All right, Rick Sharp. So I hear a lot about how the mayor, if we don't go back to the way we currently have it, that the mayor and council is still involved, but I'm not seeing it in the procedures. Step 1, it's right there. The employee has to deliver the grievance to the division manager. Step 2, division manager, then it goes to the department director. Step 3, this is if we go the new way, the grievance panel, which is all the department directors. Step 4, after the grievance panel, it goes to the city administrator. And then the city administrator will take necessary steps to review, investigate the grievance, and it will issue a written, final, and binding decision. At no point is the mayor, as an ombudsman or whatever, is involved in this new proposed process. So whatever happens to that employee at that time, when he wants or she wants to come back to the mayor or whoever and say, hey, I felt I wasn't heard, too late. So even if you wanted to put it on the agenda to try to correct that policy, it's already done. The damage is already done to that employee. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to include the mayor in this process, which I'm against going this new way, but we can't keep saying the mayor's involved when he's not. It's nowhere listed. I mean, you have to follow this procedure step by step. You can't say, well, at the end, then we're going to go over here. If you want to put it over there, you're going to put it at some point so the employee can follow that chain. But it's not there. And if we're challenging the grievance personnel policies or whatever, I highly doubt the EEOC or civil rights or whoever will take it up on that matter. And again, it's too late for the employee at that point because either have been severely disciplined or lost their job, whatever. I would strongly, again, encourage, keep it the way it is. Have the neutral body in place to listen, to hear that, because then you can still go to that next step. The employees or whatever can do that next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Any final comments or from the public? Okay, back to council. Final comments?
Can we repeat the part? Councilman Harding asked a question about how someone would come to you, an employee would come to you.
Okay, so.
Can we repeat that?
Yes. So with that, currently there's not a formal, here's how you do it in place, and I'm developing one so that it's clear to staff members and to the public as well. So as it is now, it's an email to me, or it's a phone call, or it's a knock on my door.
But a person, employee could come to you. They are allowed to do so.
Yes, any city employee is allowed to come to me directly, just like any member of the public can come to me directly.
Question. Also, with the grievance, it's different than the disciplinary because the grievance is if they believe a policy's been interpreted or put in against them wrong way, vacation or or something that's within the policy, correct?
Yeah, they're not
So
necessarily being punished.
They're not losing their job with a grievance. That would be more with the disciplinary side. Just for clarity's sake.
Okay, so this is just for the amendment itself, and it's for that change, the proposed change, to retain the committee. So this would be under the Finance and Business Operations Committee under step 4. And does everyone understand what we'd be voting on for the amendment then? Just to change it
And
to
for
the committee from,
point of order, originally I said also restoring section F, which would be required then because it would become an open public meeting. So we would be
okay, yep.
restoring the Finance and Business Operations Committee for step 4 and restoring section F.
Section F
closed
for the
session.
closed session provisions. Okay, yep. All right, so.
I have,
Yes.
so just to clarify what Mr. Sharp was talking about, in step 3, if it's not where the mayor is going to be involved, as he was saying, how do we interject the mayor into this when it's already said and done?
Well, it's every city process. The mayor is the final executive say, and then council overrides that. Like the council is the ultimate authority. So that is, I mean, it's inherent in the nature of the office. Now, whether that's known to the public or known to staff, does the public know they can contact me directly? Does do employees know they can contact me directly? I would say that's beyond the scope of this document, but certainly would merit additional postings of the ombudsman policy and education to staff to make sure they understand that. You'd have to put it in every policy otherwise to say, if you don't like this, you can go to the mayor. I mean, you would have to put it in every policy if we put it in this one.
Mr. Rogers, you had mentioned that this has been something that's been bubbling up for a long time. Why do you, in step 3, find that should change from the current to taking the mayor and the city administrator out?
I have no opinion on whether this should be adopted or not. I know either way, it's lawful for council to do it. That's my part.
That's what I was looking for, was your legal,
Well,
your personal.
legally, the council could choose which way it wishes to go. It's fine either way. I only related my experience visiting with other city attorneys. That was my only kind of factual part of it, is it's unusual, unheard of.
Okay.
But council's free to go whichever way it wishes. It'll be perfectly legal to do so.
Okay, any final questions, comments on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Ganfield.
Just one. I'm going to put you on the spot, Attorney Rogers. Other staff, we're trying to employ people that are going to advise us. What is your opinion on which way we should go?
So my job is to advise you on legal matters. My job is not to advise you on policy decisions, which those are yours to make. And I would add this. We keep talking about oversight and transparency. If council's not happy with the way that the grievance process is handled by staff, ultimately the city administrator is ultimately answerable to you folks. There's your oversight. Something to consider.
Mr. Rogers, I think Dustin and I are both fishing for maybe the same conversations that you've had with other attorneys, that you've said they find it unusual for this, or what's the conversation that is around that, or why are they surprised?
I think it boils down to the folks that are making human resources decisions, and this is part of that process, are human resources professionals or highly experienced management folks. So they do this kind of stuff every day. You folks may not have that kind of experience, and your role as council members is to set the policy for the city. And this kind of situation, if I'm pressed on it, seems like council's going down from a level where it really isn't the council's role to get into the nitty-gritty of grievances. I think that's more for staff all the way up to the city administrator and the chief executive officer. That's why I think people think it's unusual. It's not really, most cities don't see that as the city council's role.
Thank you.
But just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, again, if there was a need to change a policy, then the council could vote to change the policy or discuss and vote to change the policy. So there's also your oversight, right?
And I would presume change the policy and also address any remediation or if,
Exactly.
say it's a vacation issue. Oh, this person thought that they should have been allowed vacation and they weren't, and so they had to take sick time. Well, no, it's actually vacation. If the council decides they want to jump in on that and say, no, vacation time is, like, we changed the policy so it fits this, to make this situation clear, make this situation make sense, then the council could express to staff, these should be paid out. Right?
Yes,
The
exactly.
council always has the ultimate authority.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
I think I know the answer to this, but we go through the process basically in-house, whether council's involved or not, mayor's. The grieved person can always go to the outside entities that we mentioned as yet another. So it's not a final within the city structure, city policy, and then they can go further. And if the situation warrants it, they determine whether it's easy or not to pursue, like we talk about. That's kind of a perception, whether it's easy or not easy.
True. Council is actually setting the policy when it's deciding what to do here, but the policy set, to your point, is at what point is it final city action? And that's what you're establishing here. So there has to be final action for the aggrieved employee to go elsewhere if need be. So that's what this is setting up.
Okay, if no further questions or comments, then this is just for the amendment for city administrator, or excuse me, changing the city administrator part of step 4 back to the FBO and restoring the closed session provision in F on page 163. So motion and seconded for the amendment alone. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so let's see a show of hands for aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for nay, 1, 2. Okay, so that the amendment does pass to restore the FBO back into into the process and to restore the closed session provision. So with that,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
sorry to interrupt. I'd make a request as legal counsel to, this on the fly business makes me nervous, and so we'd like to take some time to make sure we understand the amendments, bring council back a final version so we can make sure that all of the cross references are correct, and so I don't know if that would require maybe a motion to postpone to a specific date, maybe next council meeting. We can certainly have it ready by then, just to make sure we caught everything and make sure it's internally consistent.
okay.
Mr. Mayor.
So I'd entertain that for.
Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Rogers' point, I'd like to postpone until next council meeting if that's sufficient time.
Second.
Yep, so motion to postpone and seconded for this decision until the 19th. December 19th is our next council meeting. And so with that, for a postponement, that's a voice vote, correct? Okay. So is debatable. So is there any debate on this of postponing to the 21st or to the 19th? Okay, so motion and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so this will be postponed until the 19th so that the proposed changes can be added into the document and we'll re-review it at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Okay, so that's out of there and into item 17, which is a resolution approving and adopting a recreation fee schedule to become effective January 1st, 2023. Is there a motion to
So moved.
approve?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Councilor Schultz, did you ask for this one?
Yeah, specifically, I want to talk about where we're looking at pages 3 and 4, number 5, a removal of the family season pass rate. at the falls, and we are changing to individual passes, removing disputes about the definition of family. I think we need to have more of a discussion on that, as well as look at what the price structure really is. I don't know if Mr. Shoup, you want to look?
Yeah, so if council allow, Mr. Stops here from the Recreation and or Parks and Recreation. So please go forward. He has the information. He prepared the memo for this and has some slides for us.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Mike Soppy, Recreation and Community Programs Manager.
That's the title. I apologize.
The one you're looking for. Yeah, so some of the goals that we had going forward to next year, 2023, we want to create a positive environment at the falls. We want to generate enough revenue to cover our expenses. We want to keep the rates affordable for everybody, and we want to better monitor our patrons that use the falls, and we felt like this plan was the best way to accomplish all those goals.
I was waiting for more.
Okay.
I apologize. I think we both mispronounced your last name.
That's okay. Soppy, yep.
Okay. So, you know, as your slide that was just up there says, you know, your goal is for a family destination, right? So,
correct.
I've gotten calls, I think we've all gotten emails about, you know, there's that definition of family, right? So I think that we could certainly look in all kinds of definitions, but in this price structure where you're looking at up to 1 adult and 4 children, you know, there are families still that have more than 4 children, you know, and what are we using as a guideline? And I won't put you on the spot here, but what are you using as a definition of a family and what you're looking for a pass?
Sure. So the part about taking the family pass out was kind of a 2-part decision. The first decision was kind of like you mentioned, we have such a wide range of what's a family. Is it someone that lives with you? We're divorced, but we're living together. We have stepbrothers, stepsisters. We have foster kids. We have people that have renewed their family pass for so long, they now have grandkids on it. It's just a good way to close all those loopholes and not let people abuse the system a little bit. And the second part of that, we just thought $10 to watch your child all summer long was just too low. To put that into perspective a little bit, you can't go watch a 2-hour movie for $10 anymore. If you're gonna go to Lost Island, it's $39 a day. We're charging $10 a summer, which was pretty low. To do the math on that, it actually, you're paying for one lifeguard to watch one kid 42 minutes. And that $10 is gone. That's not putting anything into the pool expenses as far as upkeep and maintenance, other staff, all that. That's where that money goes. And we wanted a little bit more of a commitment for that. If you're bringing 10 of your children to the pool, you're gonna need supervision. And we're struggling to find lifeguards. I think that's a common theme across the state, across the nation. We want to have a good support system from parents and our community to make it a family destination.
So I think our current family pass is seasonal for $210. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so if we're a family of 4 children is 280, so that's an increase of 70. Do you have any contingent plans with a family that has the 2 adults and 5, 6 children?
It's just putting everybody on the individual pass. So if you have, right now, if you would have 2 adults and 3 kids, it went up $20. That's across the board. That's kind of what we base this whole model on. If you had more than that, there is a bigger gap there for sure, but we all took that into account when we put this structure together.
So with this, all these considerations, how do you see that this will kind of solve some of the problems that you've had at the pool with disruptions and those situations?
Great question. What we want to do is kind of reward people that make an investment in our facility by getting a season pass. versus kind of the daily drop-in rate. That was low enough where people would go swim for a few hours, cause a ruckus, and get kicked out, not really care because they had their fun, now they're ready to leave. If they buy a season pass, we'll be in the system, we swipe their card and know that they got kicked out, we know who they are, and maybe they won't be able to return depending on, what they did.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Dunn.
Mr. Sapi, on the old family pass, am I recalling right that there was a limited, like, you couldn't just, like, say I had 20 kids. I couldn't just have all my 20 kids on the one family pass, right? It was a limit of what, like?
So it was set up for 2 adults and 3 children.
Right.
And then it was $10 for every kid after that.
Right.
So if you had 20 kids, it was just 10 plus 10 plus 10,
Right.
which is a pretty good deal, we thought.
Yeah, right. Okay, so then I still have kids at home, so I look at this but I have kids that are getting older. So instead of the Dunn kids needing the $210 family pass, this year I believe I'm going to save a little bit of money because each youth ticket is what? What is it, $60?
Non-resident, 50 resident.
Oh, 50. Okay, so I'm going to save a little cash because Chris and I don't need to go anymore, just 3 kids. So
Sure.
I appreciate that because not every family has lots of kids.
Sure.
So they might have a savings here. Also, I appreciate the thought of investment. Like, I never thought, I think one year when my kids were really tiny, we did the daily drop-in pass. And I get that if you're here just to visit somebody that you're going to maybe do that. But as a person who lives in the Cedar Valley, if you're going to come to the falls, you can pay for that pass, even when it was the $210 family pass. You can pay that for that pass in no time. I mean, you really are smarter to get. So I guess what I'm looking at here is right now, if it's 50, that's 5 times to the pool.
Correct.
I guess I don't feel like this is to take away from anybody participating. I get it. Like money's money, but for some people, it's actually going to be less money. And also, I do appreciate that commitment to investing in the summer pass and, collecting the information of folks that are dropping in. And also, if your mom and dad just paid for a pass and you're getting in trouble the first or second day, you're probably going to have a little bit more. I don't know. I think it adds to the community vibe of the pool. When, as a person who went to the pool last year a few times with the little one, there was some times where, obviously we did have the mayor there several times, or throughout the summer, and we did have our public safety staff there. And if your kids are involved in Camp Cedar Falls, often you're sending them with staff from Camp Cedar Falls. You want to know that they're safe. And it wasn't maybe always a safe environment. And also for our lifeguards, nobody should have to take verbal abuse. I take verbal abuse on the daily in my job, and no kid should have to sit there and be verbally abused and threatened. So I appreciate all the work that's gone into this and all the thought that's gone into this, and I assume that if it doesn't work, we can always come back to the drawing board next year if we needed to. So thank you.
For sure, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Gainfield.
I would like to request that we retain a family membership, even if we have to adjust the rates a little bit. Even accounting for inflation at, I think, let's call it 8%, it's like $17 to $20 is that inflation. I know that possibly wasn't covering the costs of all the extra policing that was perhaps wanted. But I have a concern here that if we're dropping it the way that we're doing now, let's say in my family, if it's going to cost me another $40 for me to get a membership, but I might not go if it's not an investment that way, you're removing capable adults that maybe have a little more life experience that help them de-escalate situations. So you may have families out there that are going to feel penalized, especially if they have 4 or more kids, and they won't show up. One or both parents will stop attending. So I'm concerned that we don't have that option. I like the new options because it saves a ton of money for our single parent households. You're talking $120 in savings for a single parent of a single child.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Yep, that's great.
I want these options for them, but I cannot. I look at it in the fee structure, I'll just put it this simply. I can't buy a family pass at a discounted employee rate and tell every citizen that they have to pay the higher rate. I'm not going to do that. So I need a family pass for them. I'm not going to take a break on it as an employee of the city and not give that to them. So I'd like to see that we come back with a family pass, even if it has to be a little more cost on it. The way I did the numbers, yeah, our threshold was that 5 people in a family. And in that instance, if it's 5 people in a family, it's about $20 more for the in-resident rate with 2 parents. But if you've got 6 kids, you're paying $140 more for that annual pass. That's a little bit more than an inflation hike.
Yeah, so to touch on your first point, when the previous family pass, we'll just say for residents, was $210, that was only 2 memberships. So if you were a parent that paid for both your kids, you didn't have to go anyway. And what we tried to do with the adult rate is make that lower. That's $40 because we want adults to go. We don't want people to drop off their kids, leave, and let our lifeguards do daycare. They're there to watch people in the pool and, you know, protect them from dangerous situations, not deal with disputes and ruckus going on the outside. We want adults to do that. So that's why we kind of dropped that adult rate to be more advantageous for you to go with your child.
I think the disparity I see there is when we have, under the new proposal, a single parent and however many kids, the savings difference there justifies not buying that second pass. For instance, if you have 2 parents and 3 kids, it's $20 more expensive.
Sure.
But if you have 1 parent and 3 kids, you're saving $20. So I'm not going to spend $40 when I could save $20, and then you've got 1 less adult attending. I know that you guys have done all the math on this and done the deliberation.
Yep.
I'm just not a fan of not having that family pass. And most of the citizenry that I heard from are upset about the proposal, about removing the family pass. I know it probably has to go up in cost, but we can't just remove it.
Yeah, there's definitely a shock factor when you hear that, oh no, there's not a family pass. But if you dive into the numbers and really look at them and how it's structured, I think it'd be close. Now, if you talk about putting the family pass back and raising it, we're going to be just about to where we are. It really wouldn't be a lot of savings, except for a family with 8, 9, 10 children, then absolutely. But there again, you're, as a parent, you're bringing all those kids to the pool, you need more supervision. We feel that that's pretty still a fair rate for the whole summer at $50.
Yeah, I don't want to go back and forth
Sure,
all night,
sure,
but I
you
think
bet.
we're speculating an awful lot. Like Councilmember Dunn pointed out, she may send kids, not the whole family comes. We don't have that many 10 children families in Cedar
Correct.
Falls.
Yep.
By and large, they're not going to all show up all the time, but they are going to make that investment that we're wanting for our community. And if it's going to be the $260 additional, which is more than what they paid last year by double, maybe they're going to go to Lost Island instead.
Sure.
Or maybe they're just going to sit it out this year and see what happens. So we're going to
Yeah.
lose out.
The other thing we looked at with a family with 10 kids, the age frame on those, they're not all going to be the same age more than likely. So as some kids get older, maybe don't go to the pool, some kids are too young, you know, that window, we didn't feel like all 10 were going to be there at the same time.
Right, which I think is exactly my point. We're not
Yep.
going to need supervision for 10 extra kids.
Correct.
So we're not paying a lifeguard for only 40 minutes with that family annual pass. They're paying for the convenience of being able to show up. And they're going to be strapped in an already strapped time if we add $260 in cost to their budget.
Sure.
I think part of it too is just the terminology of the family pass.
Yep.
You know, and to, you know, look at maybe a $310 family pass. You know, what would the numbers look like with that? And then you could, your family would be, if it's 1 adult and 5 kids, or 2 adults, but then you have the family.
Yeah, so there again, that's great and that makes sense. I think you're opening up some of those loopholes again. And you can put on paper what our definition of a family is, but it goes down to there's high school kids working there. Parents come in, they get aggressive with the high school kid, they're going to cave and say, oh, okay, here you go, here's your family pass. And that's not what we want. We want a good environment. Kind of another benefit of this, if everybody go into the individual passes, you don't have to drive your family down to the rec center and sign up. You'll be able to sign up at home and use a computer to upload your picture, and we'll have the pass there waiting for you at the falls, which will save time. I know the other big hang up at the falls is sometimes the line gets long, and it gets long with the daily drop-in. We're making change and people are in line. We're at the rec center where we have passes and you just swipe and go by. That's quick, that's easy, that's the direction we want to go, and we want to make it we want people to use our facility, not wait in line, and I think this is just another advantageous way to get there.
Yes, Councilor DeBoer.
Just a simple question on the infant. On the infant, you still have the daily rate, but would an infant have to buy the $50 youth pass? Or would they just pay for the $3?
Yeah, we have a age thing there. I don't have it right in front of me, but it would be the $3, or if they could get a pass, it'd be up to them.
So it would be the $50 though. I mean, we don't separate the infant though on the passes.
No, their choice, yep.
Okay.
Which would be more convenient for them.
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
I believe you mentioned this at goal setting. This is close to another city, and I can't remember what city you said that did this, and it worked well for them?
Yeah, we did. We did our homework. We went around, asked similar communities our size that have gone to this structure, and they had a lot of positive feedback. And that gave us a lot of comfort going with this too, because it is a change.
And then one of the bigger motivators for this is to solve the environment problems with the drop in the individuals.
Yep, we want to push everybody to go to a season
So
pass. Yep.
there will be some cases where people might end up paying more, but you'll have a better environment to enjoy it.
For sure, yep.
Okay. Then overall, when's the last time we raised rates to keep up with expenses, and have we seen expenses go up this 8% or more, like other commodities and chlorine or whatever, chemicals and all that? How's that keeping up?
Yeah, I think 2019 was the last time we raised rates, and it's really hard to get a comparison from that because of COVID, and we were just struggling to keep our doors open during that time. But you definitely hit the nail on the head. There's nothing going down in cost. Everything seems to be going up, and our facility is a great facility, but it was built in 2006, and it's aging. So every year, there's more upkeep to it to keep it a great facility, and there's costs involved with that.
Specifically the chemicals. I mean, you know, coming from a farm background, I know that the fertilizers and everything just skyrocket. Are we seeing that with pool chemicals?
I don't think they're skyrocketing, but they're going up.
Subjective term, of course, but
Sure.
you know, 8%, 20, you know, I'm just wondering, will we need an increase anyway?
Yeah, we would anyway, for sure.
So
We would have to do something to increase prices across the board, for sure. Whether we did this scale or not, we would have to do something.
but with this new rate model, you think your revenue will be neutral or close to? Or I guess,
If we crunch the numbers the way it went last year, we try to get as conservative as we can. We dropped our daily rate in half. And the family pass we said was a family of 5. We dropped that down to a family of 4 getting daily passes. So going as conservative as we can, using the numbers from last year, we still had a little increase in revenue, which was good to see. Because we won't want to do this plan and not cover our expenses, for sure.
of course. Do you have a sense, let's see if it might say up there, how many single-parent families, whether, I mean, it'd be 2 parents, but only one would always show up?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about the passes. Can either parent show up, or is it specifically mom signs up with the kids and it's always mom, or can dad come with the kids the next time and have the same pass?
With this?
Either one.
With this, it's all individual, so everyone would have to
Or-
get an
well,
individual
okay.
pass.
The old
Before family membership, yeah, you signed up as a family.
Could be
If it was a
mom or
single
dad.
parent with 2 kids, it was a better deal to get the family pass, so they did that. Now, it would be forcing them to go kind of more individual. They'll save money doing that, for sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor.
A big thing that I just took away from that conversation is the importance of our staff. And it was hard to even get staff last year, right?
It was.
So without a staff, we don't even have a pool to be open.
That's the growing concern. You know, we want a good environment. Having public safety there was great. They worked well with our staff. You know, again, these are high school kids that get yelled at by other high school kids, which is hard, and then get yelled at by those kids as parents, which is really hard. And you could pay them another $1 an hour, but they're not going to want to do it.
Yeah, at some point, money's
It's
not
the
doing it.
problem.
So-
It's the culture we want.
Also, I love, when I look at that, because I've had a daycare person, the cost of the daycare person dropped, right? It used to be 70, I think I had to pay for a daycare person.
Yep.
Now it's 40.
Yep.
that's nice. That's a big savings, because it used to be you had to buy the family pass plus the $70 for the kid to go. And so I appreciate that savings.
Yeah, it's a savings, but there again, we're trying to promote not dropping your kids off at the pool, dropping them off with the daycare.
Right, right.
So our lifeguards can watch people in the pool, not out of the pool.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Sires.
I had many calls about the family pass.
Sure.
Even since the 1960s in Ray Edwards Pool, my wife always got a family pass.
Mhm.
And there was the tags you sewed onto your swimsuit. This is just a little bit of history. But they also had zero tolerance for any kind of shenanigans that went on, and you sat out and then you got tossed out. I'd like to see a family pass still. I know you guys have your other reasons, but this city is to promote great things and have quality of life, and one of those things is to have a pool and have a great place for families to go. So with all the calls I got and everything else, I would like to see a family pass and then not penalize these people if they have 4 or 5 kids, especially if it's the 2 adults that are coming with them. So all my calls and all my things, I would like to see a family pass. That's all. And
Sure.
thanks for all your hard work.
Hey, you bet.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Gamble.
Just a last question for consideration. I know you guys did a ton of homework, but did you look at a discounted family pass? Say you get your family pass at the current individual rates, but you discount it by 25% once it's determined that it's a family. That still makes it increased revenue for us and a little closer to palatable for larger families.
We did, and it's just the breaking point for that. Do you break that off at 6 kids, 7 kids? It's
No break.
no break.
Just family, you get 25% discount because you're already strapped paying for groceries.
Definitely could.
It's
I
a
mean,
political call.
yeah.
Okay,
But-
so,
Mr. Mayor, but again, I think a big thing is focusing on who determines what a family is, right?
That's
Because
hard.
there are, I mean, I lived with my grandparent for a good portion of my childhood, so
Mhm.
probably in a traditional home, you wouldn't consider that your family, but that was my family. I mean, it shouldn't be up to city staff to have to determine that, I don't think.
yeah, who constitutes a family?
I think we have it defined rather simply on our website. It's worked for years. How are we going to define city staff families? We still know how to define a family. We're going to get discounted rates that define family. Apply the same rules. It's not that hard.
Can I respond to that?
Certainly.
Did you just say that staff has been having to be
It is hard.
verbally
It is.
yelled
It's
at?
hard. Yep, it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, the traditional families of the Ray Edwards generation maybe aren't here today. We have just a different culture, different families. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, questions? And open to the public as well for questions and comments. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Eric Blanchard, 2009 Four Winds Drive. I'm a part of the Parks and Rec Commission, so we discussed it at our last meeting. And since our last meeting, I've talked to families that I know go to the falls when my family goes. I have 4 kids. I talked to a lot of families with 3 to 5 kids, and the biggest response I got from parents were, we probably wouldn't buy a pass, individual pass as adults, and just take our oldest kids, drop them off, and let them be at the pool. And so that's a big concern. You're gonna have more kids with less parents at the pool. I think we need to incentivize more parents spending time and having fun in the summertime at the falls. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir, Mr. Sharp.
Rick Sharp, 1623 Burt Street. So I was glad to hear the reason for the change. How much confidence is there with this new plan to actually keep the so-called troublemakers out of the pool? I mean, I understand, I think the individual passes would be great for that if you can catch them and then scan their card and they have the ban. One of the things, a number of things have jumped out at me, this pricing structure though, that I do not see a significant price difference in the annual passes between the residents and non-residents. Most communities have a very distinguishable rate between the residents and non-residents. I mean, as obviously residents, we should get a lower rate because our taxes already support the project. Previously, you could see at least a $30 difference. Now I'm seeing anywhere from $10 to $20 difference between residents and non-residents. So I would like to see that disparity, like non-residents fees, go up a little bit more to reward the taxpayers that have supported the structure there. I heard mention about the lifeguards, trying to attract more lifeguards, but then I see in there we have lifeguarding went up 125 to 135. To me, that would be the opposite. If you're trying to attract more lifeguards, you'd want to lower that training fee to attract more lifeguards in there. Something to look at there. And the rest of it's just going to be general housekeeping. Because I'm looking at your winter fees. They don't change. They're still $135 for a pass. Why not lower? I mean, why are we just targeting the summer pass? If the goal is to lower it, let's lower it for all the programs there. Likewise for the rec center. They're still not going down. And like we're discussing here, we still have definitions for winter pass, for the rec center, for the employees. It's almost like, I'm all about consistency. If we're going to eliminate the family, the definition of the family for the falls, let's eliminate the definition for family for the winter pool pass, rec center, and for the employees as well. Let's be consistent. And then if we're going to lower the rates, I mean, no reason why the winter individual pass still has to be $135 for an individual. We can have the summer rates there. Just like I said, there's some housekeeping consistencies or lack of consistencies there that I would like to see change there. And then one final thing, I see that the locker fees, just a question, will there still be free daily use of the lockers? Thank you.
I'm seeing a head nod from Mr. Sapi on that. Sure.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of the winter season right now, so we couldn't change the rates right now because a lot of the passes have already been bought, but what we thought was if this model works good, we would implement it into next winter's rates or the rec center rates, and yes, still free daily use at the rec for lockers.
So on the definition that Mr. Ganfield was
Well, I want to keep us at the public part. I'm sorry, had you jump up on that one, but is there any other public question or comment on this? Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council. Then, yeah, Councilmember Schultz, please.
Mr. Sopi, what's the definition of a family under the winter family season pass?
I'm sure it's the same as what it is right now currently. I don't have it right in front of me, but.
Dustin, you got it?
I do, if you'd like me to read it. Family of one adult and up to 4 children, or 2 adults and up to 3 children may be included on the family pass. Each additional child will be $10. The term family is defined by the city as all 3 of the following conditions which must be met: an adult or 2 adults who are related to each other by marriage, any child who is related to either or both of the adults by blood, marriage, adoption, or legal guardianship, claimed as dependents for income tax purposes, all of whom will occupy a single dwelling unit on a regular continuing basis. It also specifies visiting extended family members may not be included on the family pass.
And that's a lot to put on a high school kid to verify.
And also, there's been, I think, to the conflicts the past couple of, or 2 years that I've been following this closely. The real problem has been long-term living together arrangements with children together. And
there's a lot of variables.
Extremely angry at us for not allowing that.
Well, I know that's a procedural headache that you may have to overcome, but I'm still stuck with the family definition as what we're just talking about here. And I don't want to belabor that anymore. But
sure.
I think that's something to even move this forward. We need to come up with an agreement of how we're going to include that in here.
So are you looking to have the council give the definition for the city of family?
No,
are you willing to do that?
For us to utilize what we've already been using as a definition of family in this pay structure.
Well, what do you mean? Sorry, I was going to say I believe that, the definition is very thorough, and I appreciate that. But I know when my family went and got passes, it was you go at the rec center and get your picture taken, you sign up, and you do all this stuff, and it's high school kids working there. So, if they get someone it gets contentious or gets in their face, they're having trouble with that. Obviously, that's what they're saying. So they're having trouble verifying these things, and when they're being questioned, people are getting irate. So I think that's one big reason to eliminate the family pass that we keep hearing, is that we're trying to make it simpler. So, yeah.
So there's going to be a group that is going to want family pass and the definitions that we're using, and all the others, I got no problem with the definitions that we have here. If a two adults that may be living together and however they have their structure, and they're gonna go with two adults and two children, they have that. And then the families that identify as a family have the family pass.
But they have to also be married, the two adults, according to our policy, to be considered a family.
So people are getting, yeah. So then you have to go into defining a family as a council. And is that our, are we going to account for every situation? Are we going to, it gets to me, it gets to semantics. People want to feel good about the family thing. I get that. I love my family more than anything. But I'm just going to go make it simple, and I'm going to buy a pass, and I'm going to buy my kids passes, and I'm going to buy my wife a pass, and we're going to go. I've talked to people that were the opposite, that were not allowed to get a family pass because they weren't considered in this, or so.
So they have that option now, and then we would just add the family, as we already have, and those folks now can be included by saying we're two adults and two children, or
So any two adults and any two children? Like, how do we prove that they're a family, like, by our definition?
well, what are we defining as two adults and two children? Are you asking them if they're married or if they're living together, or what are you asking them now if they come in and we want two adults and two children?
Sure, we have the policy there, and we ask them, but it's just hard to prove it. I mean, they're not going to bring a marriage certificate in to the rec, or, birth certificates or all that. We're just basically at their word.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you can still go to the falls as a family. And either way, we would have to raise the rate, right? It's not, it's still, you can take your whole family. It can be, the whole Dunn family can still go. It's just not gonna be called a family pass. It's gonna be the easiest thing ever, because I'm gonna sit at home on my computer in the middle of the winter, get my things, no more hauling those kids down to the rec center. Either way, I'm either gonna pay a little less or maybe a little more, but I would have paid more anyway, because we have to raise the rate somehow in order to cover the cost. And it's gonna be a lot less stress on our staff to not have to sit there and judge what qualifies as a family.
Councilor Hardy.
Question. All right, so let's say we bring the family pass back, right? And have we done the math on how much we would raise the family pass? Because obviously the comparison is to the price of last year's family pass, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So did you guys spitball numbers for what the family pass would be this year if we brought it back?
We did.
What, can you let me know what it would be?
There again, we ran it for every family. Yeah.
Okay, so.
And we tried to fit it in there where it was the most comfortable.
So if we bring it back, what would you be comfortable bringing it back at? $280, $300?
Sure, but that's not going to affect very many families if your two adults and two kids get in for $180.
I guess that was my point, was that if we bring back the name of the family pass, we're going to raise it to $280, $300. Well, then what's the point in bringing it back?
So, Mr. Mayor, that's my point of offering a percentage reduction. Instead of having a family pass at a set rate, once you hit a threshold of family, you get a 25% discount. So that makes it more, it's still going to cost more for everybody that's above 4 kids in their family. It's still going to cost them a lot more. For some cases, it's $130 more. But at least it's not a cutoff that says, okay, if you're the approved normal size family, then you're getting a discount from the city. But if you're a large family, you're getting a huge expenditure. So a percentage discount, if you didn't look at it and crunch the numbers, I would like to table this until we have those numbers to look at and see if we can save a family pass, even if it's not a $300. Still keep it the $40 for the adults, $50 for the kids, and then discount them 25%. We're giving our families a benefit. And to our Parks and Rec Commission, that's incentivizing families to participate together, instead of what we're hearing from our residents that, well, my adult people just won't go then, because that's going to save me $80. So that'll help me offset what I've got to pay for my kids, and I'll just send my kids alone, which is only going to compound the issue of overworked lifeguards. We have to get families there. We're not going to do it by making them cost a ton more. So let's look at the numbers with a 25% discount, or something that's palatable to your team, because obviously you have to raise rates.
Yeah.
But let's see that family pass with a percentage reduction.
So just put it like this, just to play devil's advocate for you. If you had 4 kids and we raised the family pass to $280, which I think was a number that was thrown out, they're not going to do that. They're going to pay $200 and the adults are going to go. They're going to get 4 individual passes. It doesn't, there's no incentive to get the family pass.
Except that when they add in the adults, they get a 25% discount on everybody's pass. So it's going to offset that extra, and the families are going to attend together. I'd like to see those numbers. That's my point.
But again, to play devil's advocate, what if you do the math at 25%, adding in the parents' things, it's still not cheaper than just getting the kids' passes. So again, they could just buy. The whole deal comes back to, we're trying to make it simple. I mean, I think we're doing what this council's done best for a while now, overcomplicating something and not trying anything and trying to solve problems before we've even had problem. So, you know, I get it that everybody's not happy about this, but there are a lot of people that are happy about this. So let's just try it and see if it works, and then come back next year and tweak it if it doesn't. I mean, let's not sit here and try to solve problems that don't exist and do things and overcomplicate it. It's really not that complicated.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz. Then we'll look to kind of wind down the discussion here.
I think we're maybe not getting away from the primary motivation to change this was to fix the bad environment that developed.
One of the major causes, yes.
Okay, so to Director Birdie, the additional staff requirements or police presence, how much did that cost, or is that just kind of incorporated into their daily routine? And was there an additional cost charged to the falls for police arriving to settle arguments and so on?
No, we had additional staff work there, but we also had reserve officers. People did it on duty. There was some overtime money spent, but that's just the business we're in. It might be walking College Hill, it might be helping at the falls. So I can't sit here and tell you what extra money was spent patrolling there. So,
but it's probably not a huge number, it sounds like.
No.
Okay.
Right. Other questions, comments? Yeah. Well,
I guess I'm still, I mean, we're hearing the conversation, digging deep into the weeds about the family pass, but then we're getting away from the bad environment events that the mayor witnessed and others. So
I didn't actually witness them.
Oh, okay. You went to maybe witness, I don't know. So I just want to draw focus back to that. We're talking about family passes, but the individual rates have gone up, and if we change the family pass, like you're suggesting, do you keep the increase in the drop-in rate? Okay, I'm just wondering.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the increase in the drop-in rate is an attempt to curtail some of that. I'm just going to go in for a couple hours and cause some problems.
For sure.
They may be less inclined to do that if it costs them $5 more.
Right. Again, we're trying to pursue the season pass at a great rate, which would be better for them to do that. For sure.
Gotcha. Yep. I think what, in effect, this happens to do to some of those larger families is straps them with that added cost for problems they didn't cause.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my personal take on it would be, let's hold people accountable. If that's the problem, is daily drop-in people wanting to show up and start a fight, let's make sure they don't come back. And I don't know exactly how to tell you how to do that because they don't have a pass where you can track them. But I certainly think this feels like we're penalizing our families who aren't causing the extra need.
Okay,
So to the point of registering.
Councilmember Schultz, go ahead, please.
So the point of registering at home, if you chose a family pass, you could still do that from home as well, correct?
No, because we'd require you to go to the rec center and.
Well, you were saying that on the 2 adults and the 1 children or whatever the other ones are, that how do you know what the 2 adults relationship is? Or it doesn't?
Everybody would get an individual pass.
Well, he's talking about under the old system, so.
At the old system, you have to go to the rec, because there again, you would have to try to verify your family and have everybody there and say, these are my family members. And
it's very subjective, right?
It is. It's time consuming. It stresses our staff greatly.
Yes. Mr. Mayor.
Any final thoughts here?
I guess-
Councilmember Ganfield?
I'd like to move that we table this until the 19th, and at that time receive back a recommendation with a family pass included, whether it's that percentage discounted rate or otherwise.
It's been motioned to table this postpone to the 19th.
Second.
Motion and seconded, open for discussion.
I think the intention there would be to give them time to put those numbers together to find out exactly what the final analysis would be, including that family pass at a discounted rate.
Okay.
And see whether it still accomplishes the needs and would
Right.
be a recommendation. That way we can choose between the two.
And I guess for probably, for Director Rodenbeck, when would we need to have these fees set in order to move forward? Like, is there a drop date in January?
I'll answer that. We look to change the fees January 1 because if we have increases at the rec or things that change, there are a lot of people that buy their memberships at the beginning of the year. We've already had several people asking about pool passes for the summer. They're buying them for gifts and things like that. So I think we've kind of held some of those off because we know we have this proposed change coming up.
So what's been motioned and seconded is to postpone this item until the 19th, to have the additional information brought forward. So this is just for the postponement. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so let's see, raise of hands for aye. 1, 2, 3, and for opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that motion fails to postpone the item, so it brings it back onto the floor to what we have now as a resolution approving and adopting the recreation fee schedule to become effective January 1st, 2023. Any final discussion? Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded. It requires a roll call vote.
Four voting aye, three voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that fee schedule does pass and takes us out of the resolution calendar and over to bills and claims. So is there a motion to approve bills and claims for December?
So moved.
Second. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Any from the public? Then all in favor, or excuse me, this requires a roll call vote.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now over to council updates and announcements. Do we have any updates tonight? Seeing none. How about for council referrals?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Cruz.
I'd like to revisit something we talked about a little while back on the, excuse me, the 20-year limit on being appointed to boards and commissions. It's item 6A. I guess I'd like to drop that from, it's CFD 1201, Mayor's Appointment Process for Boards and Commissions.
Okay, just for process, that's not something that the council can modify, but you certainly can express an opinion on that if you desire through a resolution. So would you wish to refer a consideration of a resolution?
Certainly.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to explain why we couldn't do a referral to discuss the merits of having or not having a 20-year limit.
For a discussion, that then would go to a committee, is that right? So the admin committee, maybe? It's an internal process, or committee of the whole, because it's a, so let's say committee of the whole, just to throw it out there. So if council wishes to refer a discussion of that to committee of the whole, that would be, for Mr. Rogers, I don't see any problem with that, for them to, there's just not really action they can change with it.
The action couldn't occur in committee anyway, so presumably the referral is to consider changing it.
Discuss the merits of, and then therefore decide to change or keep as is.
So the action item at the end of the committee meeting, I suppose, would be to either forward to council a change or not. See, I think there has to be, in order for it to be a committee item, there needs to be some action at the end. So if the referral were stated, let's refer the possibility of changing the 20-year limit to boards and commissions to a committee for consideration, and then there'd be discussion around that, pluses or minuses, and that either carries to council or not, I think.
Yeah, well, the problem with that, though, is, and we're discussing even whether the motion itself is valid. The problem is that, in my mind, anything related to the appointment process, as I build up how I'm going to consider people, what I'm going to do going forward to put forward that nominee, that's solely my decision.
So the 20-year, is that your is that one of your?
That's my personal practice.
And that's not in a procedure approved by council? Now I understand.
Yeah,
So-
just like the selection panel that I have, that's my authority to set that process, and I would absolutely not cede any of that authority away to council. That'd be improper.
So I agree with that. So the referral would have to be some sort of ordinance that dictates this issue. That would be a proper referral then. That would be trying to cede authority from the mayor, because I agree with him. It's that appointment process by ordinance is completely within his discretion.
Yeah, the council has told me that I have the appointing authority for boards and commissions with a consent of council, and that's it.
But as Mr. Rogers says, then we would have to phrase it as a referral to change an ordinance. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Well, then that's what I'd like to do, to discuss changing an ordinance so that we don't have a 20-year limit on boards and commissions if people choose to go longer.
So I'm just thinking, if I bring it forward, then
Point of order.
well, I would just choose not to bring a person forward. Well, I don't even have to give my reason to not reappoint someone. That's solely in my authority.
Unless council said otherwise in an ordinance.
Can I ask a question? But if someone is really doing a good job and you've limited it to over 20 years, you can't continue, then you're automatically eliminating someone who might be doing a good job.
Yes. So it's an idea of, and I don't want to get into the merits of it right now because we're talking about whether we even want to have a discussion. So I think there's enough information out now for council for the referral. It's been motioned for a committee of the whole discussion. I think it needs to occur there for an ordinance change to
Address longevity of boards and commissions appointees.
Okay. Does that make sense?
A second.
Okay, motion and seconded, open for council discussion.
I guess the point, Mr. Mayor, that like Mr. Burr alluded to, if somebody likes being on a board and a commission, they're doing a good job, they're appearing, and they want to continue past 20 years, let them continue for the benefit of the city. If they don't like it, they would have dropped off before 20 years has transpired. So I think there shouldn't be an artificial limit to not to let somebody continue. It's just kind of a basic thought.
Okay.
We've got a motion and a second. to
Yeah,
send it to
motion and
committee.
seconded. No other comment? Then it's been motion and seconded to refer to committee of the whole to discuss an ordinance about longevity of boards and commission members. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So show of hands for aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nay. 1, 2. So that does pass, and that will be a referral to committee of the whole.
As a matter of clarification, would council like to see some language along those lines to consider? Or do you want to?
Wing it?
I don't.
I'd rather have language.
We don't, we don't like to legislate on the fly, so maybe we could bring something forward to you to consider when it comes back to the committee.
Correct question. If you're going to talk about this, that's fine. Well, we are going to talk about it because it's 5 voted that we are. But then you just have to talk about changing the ordinance of what the mayor's in control of. And you have to cede that power out to council from the appointing things to council. So the conversation really isn't about 20 years. It's really about taking appointment power from the mayor. So
Discretion.
that's discretion. So that's what it should be aimed at, because that's what it is. And then you set an ordinance in stone for future mayors for appointing discretion and how it works.
And we're really at the end of that,
Yeah, I get
that debate, since
That's
that
fine.
was voted on. We can't continue on a discussion under Robert's
That's fine.
rules. So this is certainly welcome for a discussion when we get to that committee meeting. So any other referrals tonight? All right, so looking at that, we move now have an item for executive session. This is item 29, which is an executive session to discuss confidential personal records per Iowa Code Section 215-1A to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Then this requires a roll call vote.
Oops. I hit the X.
Oh, no.
It's loading up. Sorry. I vote yes.
It doesn't matter, we've got a majority anyway.
Yay.
Okay.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we will move to executive session in the executive conference room. We'll be back out here just briefly in order to close the meeting, but there'll be no more decisions tonight through this. So thank you very much for your attendance in this very interesting discussion tonight.